Okay, everybody, welcome to this presentation. We're going to talk about how to prepare visual presentations that get your audience excited and interested in what you have to talk about. We're going to cover some of the regular problems people have with PowerPoint presentations, Keynote presentations, and other slide-based presentations that very often cause them to create hideous presentations. Anybody here, raise your hand if you've seen the 67-page slide that by the time you get to the 30th slide, half the audience is asleep. Well, I've seen that. Have you seen that? Yeah. A lot of folks have seen that. It's a horrible problem, and unfortunately in business, it's made even worse. Now, a lot of folks go the other way. They'll create a very pretty presentation, beautiful presentation that is very visually exciting, but too busy. The audience gets confused. They don't really get the message that is there to be received. Well, what we're going to talk about today is 5 easy steps to create any visual presentation that you're going to use for persuasion, education, or information, and how to present that in such a way that your audience is engaged and excited about what you're interested in. Now, if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask your questions at the end of the presentation. This is just about a 10 to 12 minute presentation, but it really gets you started in the key 5 steps to create a visually compelling presentation. Now, what I want to cover first is that we are not talking about visual as in moving pictures and fancy. We're talking about a slide presentation used in a business environment, and it's used in the context of business. We talked about education, we talked about persuasion, we talked about information. Well, this is the slide presentation you might use for your status report. It might be a small training session. The graphics themselves can be anything from graphics that have a graph, for example. So a pie chart. How do you present that pie chart? It could be images that, as we're going to talk about soon, increase the understanding of the slides. Now, the example deck that I'm going to use is from a Boots to Business program that we did here in Martinsville, Virginia with SCORE. Now, this is a slide deck for a 90-minute presentation, and it has just 10 slides. Now, it's a mystery to me why people feel it's necessary to fill up a 30-minute status meeting with 41 slides. It's like they're afraid they're going to miss something. If you find that your slide deck has many slides, then maybe it shouldn't be a slide deck. Maybe it should be a report. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Let's get right into the 5 steps. So before I wrote this presentation, I actually prepared it in an outline. That's step number 1. Step number 1 is to prepare your outline. Now, why are we going to prepare an outline? Well, remember, any kind of communications that you do, any kind of presentation that you do, any type of speaking that you do is more about the message and that audience, so the match between the message and audience, than the presentation medium. Very important fact to consider. Because the presentation medium could change from year to year, but the underlying message needs to stay consistent and compelling to the purpose of the program. So if you're going to have an outline, for example, the outline will help you tailor your message first before making any decisions about medium. We're talking to you today live on video, and that's one medium, but it wouldn't be any different if I'm standing in the room. I could share the same message. So when you prepare your visual presentation, you don't start with the graphics. You start with the message. If you're doing a presentation for fundraising, it is a persuasive presentation, and it's a presentation that talks about different compelling elements that induces the audience into raising their hand and contributing to your organization. You don't start thinking about, well, the logo. What logo am I going to use? What pictures? Don't worry about that. The very first thing you're going to do is the outline. Number 2 is you're going to put together a slide deck. Now, a slide deck is going to be devoid of any type of just basic, any type of flash or fancy. Now, at this point, I would pull up PowerPoint and show you how to turn your outline into a slide deck. So PowerPoint has a feature to build your outline in PowerPoint itself and then turn it to slides. The key things to understand here is that you want to have the use of the templates. You don't want anything fancy. You want a simple outline, 1 or 2 bullet points. Think Twitter, not a blog post. You want to have an outline with 1 or 2 bullet points, 3 bullet points at the most, and then you can turn that into a slide. And we're going to start with a blank presentation. Now, why is that important? Because when you choose images, number 3, this is the third step when you start choosing images, you have to carefully consider your images to do 3 very important things. The very first thing that your images will do is provide context to any text that's presented. So let's look at this first slide. This was the Boots to Business program from the U.S. Small Business Administration. There's a small amount of text here, and it's a question. How do you know your business ideas here? This is the introduction slide. We're just getting started. So to make this more visually compelling, we made the graphic huge to take up the whole page. Because remember, when you're putting slides up, you really want to catch the audience's attention. So choose images that amplify your message, and number 2, catch your audience's attention. You'll also notice that there's only 1 image on this slide. Now, the other slides as well only have 1 image on the slide. Now, if you put 5 images on the slide, which image should the audience look at? That's why we put just 1 image on the slide. So number 3 is you're going to choose a single image. You also want to make sure that you are choosing images that are copyright free for commercial use. Okay, and there's a number of ways that you can search for those, but we won't cover them right now in this program. I just want you to understand that the images need to be copyright free, because you don't want to get your workplace in trouble by using, or your church or whoever you're doing a presentation for, you don't want them to get in trouble by using an image that is copyrighted. So this one, for example, right here, this picture came from NASA. Most of the images that come from a government agency are copyright free and available for commercial use. Number 4. Now, you see these layouts, you might notice a pattern. They're very similar in the layout. Now, instead of choosing a layout and dragging around, see, this is a very vibrant image here. Now, in this case, Flickr requires that I use a source attribute, but this is a very vibrant image. I didn't decide to put this image in the background. What I used was templates that are readily available with the PowerPoint or the Keynote presentation, basically design tools to lay the image out. Now, I didn't play around with it. I didn't adjust it. I just let the tool decide. This one right here, these 2 slashes with Milton Berle, I let the tool do the work. Because what commonly happens, and I mentioned it in the beginning, is that folks will often spend a lot of time messing around with their presentation, making it perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. It does need to be done. Now, this particular slide actually has a large amount of text. Now, remember, this was a 90-minute presentation, and this larger amount of text that's here on the slide are kind of bullet points that were covered in a discussion topic. So you want to think about your audience with each slide. You want to think about, does this picture convey what we're talking about? And then the last part, number 5, after you've done your outline, after you've put together your slide deck, after you've used simple, compelling, copyright-free images, after you've used design tools to lay things out rather than worrying too much about dragging and dropping stuff or making the fonts any certain way, this is the default font. Remember, it's more about the context and the content than it is about the creative itself. The last thing you're going to do is you're going to test your slide. Now, what you'll notice here is this is a PDF presentation of the slide deck. Now, I print it to PDF, and I want to test the slides. I want to make sure on every slide I'm answering the question, does this image extend the message? In this case, these are the topics that we're going to be covered over the 90-minute period. And it's really all about what? Opportunity recognition. If the customer only saw the slide and heard you speak, would the image be compelling enough? The next one, this is a veteran business program. So we were real careful to make sure that we had this individual here, and I could have put a context under it, But this individual here is actually in charge of a veterans program, and you see veterans in the background, military people in the background. This is about our Veterans to Work program. So the picture amplifies the message. It's really just 5 simple steps. Every image in here is copyright free. Now you want to catalog somewhere in a side document where you got the images from. That's very important. But what is this image? What is this picture about? You don't even need to read the text. You can tell it's about ideas. It's about using your brain. And this isn't a perfect presentation. This presentation could have been laid out 10 different ways. The sunrise, depending on the audience, depending on available images. This is just how it worked out. But I'll be quite frank with you, after I got the outline together, the visual part was just a matter of minutes. It took probably 3 minutes a slide to find an image, get it laid out, and then get it inside of this PDF so that I can work with it. And of course, now's the time for questions. If you do have any questions about this, I'll stay on for a little bit more. But I appreciate you hanging in here. Your ability to make a stunning visual presentation means more now than ever before, because folks are really visually oriented. They're very busy. They need to be able to see something and get the concepts right away. Investing in these 5 steps to do your next visual presentation will make all the difference. Not only you'll get your presentation done faster, but you'll also be able to have it interesting to the audience through the visual medium that is very often ignored when doing PowerPoint or other slides. I'm Justin Hitt with Ad Briefing's Copywriting Tips. Thanks for watching.